There's a strange reason many people never become financially secure, and it has nothing to do with intelligence, nothing to do with hard work, and sometimes not even income, because there are people earning little who quietly build stability, and there are people earning a lot who remain trapped in financial anxiety for years. Ancient teachers once compared money to water carried through a village, not because water was valuable alone, but because every container revealed a hidden truth. Some containers arrived full, others arrived nearly empty, even though both started from the same river. And according to old wisdom, the difference was rarely the river, it was the leaks. Now think carefully about that. Many people believe financial problems begin with not earning enough, but ancient observers noticed something deeper. A person can increase income dramatically and still remain financially weak if their life is full of invisible leaks. Small emotional spending, uncontrolled habits, constant emergencies, lifestyle pressure, impulse buying, trying to look successful, trying to escape stress temporarily, and slowly, money disappears without creating real stability. That is why some people receive salary after salary, yet never feel safe, because money entered their hands, but never stayed long enough to build protection. An old merchant once told his son, "Saving money is not about holding coins. It is about closing holes." That sentence sounds simple, but hidden inside it is a brutal truth most people avoid. The real enemy is often not low income. It is unconscious leakage. And modern life is designed around this weakness. Everywhere you look, people are encouraged to consume emotionally. Stressed? Buy something. Sad? Spend something. Bored? Order something. Feeling behind in life? Upgrade something. And over time, people begin using spending as emotional medicine. But ancient wisdom warned that emotional spending creates invisible chains, because temporary pleasure often creates long-term pressure. Now listen carefully. One of the biggest lies people secretly believe is this: I'll start saving when I earn more. But history repeatedly proved otherwise. People who cannot control small money rarely control large money. In fact, larger income often magnifies undisciplined habits, which is why some wealthy-looking people are secretly drowning in debt. Ancient teachers understood something powerful. Saving money is less about mathematics and more about behavior, because behavior determines whether money survives your lifestyle. Now here comes the uncomfortable truth nobody likes admitting. Many people do not actually want financial peace. They want financial appearance. Read that again slowly. They want the image of success, the clothes, the gadgets, the validation, the lifestyle signals, but not the discipline required to create long-term security. And this is why comparison destroys savings quietly. A person sees another person traveling, buying luxury items, living loudly online, and suddenly their own disciplined life begins feeling behind. So they spend emotionally to compete with people whose reality they do not even know. Ancient wisdom called this borrowing suffering to purchase appearance, and millions unknowingly live inside this trap today. Now imagine two farmers. The first farmer eats every seed immediately because he wants satisfaction now. The second farmer protects some seeds carefully for the next season. At first, the first farmer appears happier, more comfortable, more relaxed. But when difficult seasons arrive, only one farmer remains secure. That was the ancient analogy for saving money. Saving was never viewed as punishment. It was viewed as survival preparation, protection against uncertainty. Because wise people understood something modern culture ignores. Life changes suddenly. Jobs change. Economies change. Health changes. Opportunities change. And people without reserves become controlled by emergencies. This is why ancient communities respected savers deeply, not because they were greedy, but because they were prepared. And in the next part, you're going to discover why many people secretly sabotage their savings, even when they genuinely want to improve financially. Because there is a psychological trap hidden inside modern spending. And once you see it clearly, you may never look at money the same way again. There was an old story about a fisherman who could never keep food stored for long. Every time he caught extra fish, he celebrated immediately. invited people, spent carelessly, lived loudly, and by the end of each season, he returned to desperation again. Meanwhile, another fisherman, earning almost the same amount, quietly built stability year after year. When asked the difference, the older fisherman replied, "One man thinks about today's hunger. The other thinks about tomorrow's storm." That story was never really about fish. It was about human behavior with money, because saving money is deeply psychological. And this is the truth many people never want to admit. Most financial problems begin emotionally before they become mathematical. People often spend based on feelings, not logic. Stress creates spending. Loneliness creates spending. Success creates spending. Even sadness creates spending. Money becomes connected to emotion instead of purpose. And once that pattern begins, saving feels painful. Why? Because every saved dollar feels like delayed gratification. Ancient wisdom understood the struggle long before modern psychology explained it. That is why old teachers trained discipline first before wealth. Because undisciplined people often become slaves to immediate pleasure. Now think carefully. Why do many people feel uncomfortable seeing money sit untouched? Because modern culture trains constant consumption. You are constantly told to upgrade, celebrate, reward yourself, live once, enjoy now, and slowly, patience begins feeling unnatural. But ancient savers viewed money differently. To them, saved money represented future freedom, not deprivation, not misery. Freedom, freedom to survive hardship, freedom to avoid desperation, freedom to make decisions calmly instead of fearfully. And this mindset changed everything. Now here comes another truth nobody likes hearing. Many people spend money to repair emotional insecurity. That expensive phone, that luxury purchase, that unnecessary lifestyle. Sometimes it is not about enjoyment. It is about identity. People want to feel respected, important, successful, accepted, and businesses understand the psychology extremely well. That is why emotional marketing is everywhere. People are rarely sold product alone. They are sold feelings, status, validation, escape, importance. Ancient wisdom warned about this thousands of years ago using a different analogy. They compared uncontrolled desire to fire. A small controlled fire can help a village survive winter, but uncontrolled fire eventually burns the entire village down. And desire behaves the same way. Without discipline, it grows endlessly. Now notice this carefully. One of the reasons saving money feels difficult is because the reward is invisible at first. Spending gives immediate stimulation. Saving gives delayed security. And human beings naturally struggle with delayed rewards. But ancient teachers trained themselves to value invisible protection more than visible excitement. That is why some people appear boring financially for years, then suddenly become incredibly stable later in life, while others appear exciting temporarily, but secretly live under constant pressure. An old teacher once said, "The loudest lifestyle is often hiding the deepest anxiety." And many people know this secretly, because financial stress hides behind many smiles, behind many luxury pictures, behind many expensive appearances. Now listen carefully to this next truth. Saving money is not merely about storing currency. It is about building distance between yourself and panic. That sentence is powerful, because people with savings think differently during emergencies. They negotiate differently, choose differently, live differently. They are not controlled entirely by fear, and that emotional stability itself becomes a form of wealth. But there is still one hidden danger ancient teachers warn about constantly, a danger that quietly destroys savings no matter how much money enters someone's life. And once you understand this next principle, you will understand why some people stay financially trapped for decades without realizing the real reason. Ancient teachers once described human desire as a bucket with no bottom. No matter how much water entered, it could never stay full. And according to old wisdom, this is exactly how many people live financially. Every increase in income creates a new increase in lifestyle. A bigger house, a newer car, more expensive habits, more subscriptions, more pressure. And strangely, the person earning more often still feels financially insecure. Why? Because the problem was never income alone. The problem was expansion without control. This ancient principle appears everywhere in life. Give an undisciplined appetite more food, it grows larger. Give an undisciplined ego more attention, it demands even more. And give undisciplined spending more income, it expands endlessly. This is why ancient wisdom taught restraint as a survival skill, not punishment, restraint. Because without restraint, money escapes as quickly as it arrives. Now pay attention carefully. One of the biggest financial traps today is something ancient teachers would immediately recognize: lifestyle inflation, the dangerous habit where every improvement in income instantly becomes an excuse to increase consumption. And at first, it feels harmless. A better phone, a better apartment, a few more luxuries. But slowly, fixed expenses rise higher and higher, until eventually, the person earning more is still trapped emotionally paycheck to paycheck. Only now the prison looks more expensive. That is why ancient wise men admired simplicity, because simplicity protected freedom. A person with fewer unnecessary burdens could survive difficult seasons more calmly. But modern society often mocks simplicity. People are pressured constantly to look successful, and this pressure silently destroys savings worldwide. Now, here is a painful truth many people avoid. Some people do not save because deep down, they believe money will always disappear anyway. So subconsciously, they spend quickly before life takes it from them. This mindset is dangerous because beliefs shape behavior, and behavior shapes financial destiny. Ancient teachers understood this deeply. That is why they constantly repeated stories about stewardship, the idea that money must be managed carefully instead of emotionally consumed. Now imagine a traveler crossing a desert. One traveler drinks all his water early because he wants comfort immediately. The other traveler drinks carefully while protecting reserves for unknown conditions ahead. At first, the disciplined traveler appears overly cautious. But during the harshest part of the journey, only one traveler survives comfortably. That was the ancient philosophy behind saving. Not fear, preparation. And this is where many people misunderstand wealthy thinking completely. True wealth is not always visible. Sometimes true wealth looks ordinary, quiet, disciplined, controlled, while fake wealth often looks loud, attention-seeking, emotionally driven. Ancient teachers respected quiet stability more than visible luxury, because visible luxury without reserves was considered fragile. Now, listen carefully to this next principle. Saving money changes more than your bank account. It changes your psychology, because financial reserves create patience. They create emotional stability. They reduce desperation. And desperation causes many bad decisions in life. Bad relationships, bad jobs, bad compromises, bad opportunities accepted out of panic. This is why ancient wisdom viewed savings as protection for the mind as much as protection for survival. But perhaps the deepest truth about saving money is still ahead, because there is one final lesson ancient teachers understood that completely changes how disciplined people see wealth, peace, and long-term success. An old man once planted trees, knowing he might never sit under their shade. When asked why, he smiled and said, "Because wise people prepare beyond their current moment." That sentence captures the real truth about saving money. Saving was never only about wealth. It was about preserving future possibilities, because people without reserves often lose the power to choose. And choice is one of the greatest forms of freedom in life. Now think carefully about this. Why do financially desperate people often stay trapped in painful situations? Toxic jobs, bad environments, humiliating dependence, because survival pressure controls them. Ancient wisdom understood something modern culture rarely discusses. Money stored wisely creates emotional breathing room. An emotional breathing room changes human behavior. A person with savings can think more clearly during crisis, move more carefully, avoid panic decisions, protect dignity, and sometimes even protect their family from suffering. That is why ancient teachers respected savers deeply, not because they worshiped money, but because they respected preparedness. Now here comes the uncomfortable truth no one likes admitting. Most people are not destroyed financially by one giant disaster. They are destroyed slowly by small daily undisciplined choices. Tiny leaks, tiny indulgences, tiny emotional purchases, repeated for years. And eventually those small leaks become enormous financial weakness. Ancient wisdom compared this to termites inside wood. From the outside, everything appears strong, but internally, slow destruction is already happening. And by the time collapse becomes visible, the damage has existed for a long time. This is exactly how careless spending behaves. Quiet, gradual, invisible at first. Now listen carefully. One of the greatest lies modern culture teaches is this: if you can afford the payment, you can afford the lifestyle. Ancient wisdom strongly disagreed, because wise people did not measure affordability by monthly payments alone. They measured it by peace, by flexibility, by reserves, by sustainability. And this is why some people earning average incomes quietly become financially secure, while others earning far more remain trapped in anxiety. Discipline matters more than appearance. Always. Now imagine two ships crossing the ocean. One ship uses all its fuel recklessly early in the journey because conditions seem calm. The other ship conserves carefully for storms ahead. When difficult weather arrives, only one captain remains calm. That is the real purpose of saving money, not merely accumulation, preparedness, because storms always come eventually in life. Unexpected expenses, economic changes, family emergencies, lost opportunities, and people without reserves become controlled by fear during those moments. But ancient wisdom taught something beautiful. A disciplined saver eventually experiences a strange kind of peace, not because they are rich beyond imagination, but because they are no longer constantly afraid. And freedom from constant financial fear is one of the greatest luxuries on earth. Now here comes the final truth. Saving money is an act of respect toward your future self. It is choosing long-term peace over short-term excitement. It is protecting tomorrow without hating today. And perhaps this is why ancient teachers viewed discipline as a form of wisdom rather than restriction, because disciplined people suffer less chaos over time. So the next time you feel tempted to spend emotionally, remember the village containers. Remember the desert traveler. Remember the farmer protecting seeds for another season. And remember this ancient truth. Wealth is not built only by what enters your hands. It is built by what remains long enough to protect your future. If this message opened your eyes, subscribe to the channel and share this video with someone who works hard but still struggles to save money. Because one hidden financial truth can quietly determine whether your future becomes peaceful or permanently unstable.